Welcome to Table for One. I'm the narrator, and in today's video, I'll be doing a rules refresher for Dune Imperium. At the beginning of this video, I'll give the briefest overview that I can over how to play the game if you're brand new to it, and then most of the focus will be on how to use the solo mode. Let's get rolling. Alright, so I am all set up to do a rules refresher for Dune Imperium. Now, my goal in this video is not to do a complete comprehensive rules instruction for how to play the base game of Dune Imperium, but I really want to focus on how to run the solo mode. But for those of you who don't know how to play Dune Imperium at all, I am going to do a very brief, non-comprehensive rules overview on how all of this works. And so the way that I'm set up right now is sort of for a regular three-player game. Now, if you already know how to play Dune Imperium or you're just looking for answers on solo mode, I do have chapter markers, so you can just jump past this brief overview. Again, I'm going to go through this really quick. It won't be totally comprehensive, but it'll give you enough info to be dangerous anyway. But let's go ahead and jump into it. The end game is triggered when somebody at the end of a round has 10 or more victory points. So when that happens, then you trigger the end game. There could be potentially some victory points moving up and down at that point, and then the game will be over. So you're playing for victory points. Again, the first player to get to 10 does not win necessarily. The first time a player gets to 10 does not necessarily trigger the end game because you can lose victory points too. So it's at the end of a round if somebody has 10 or more, then the end game is triggered. So this game is a combination of worker placement and deck building. The deck that you start with is the same for all players. So these are Imperium cards. You can see there's a whole deck of them here. You start with 10 of them, and it's got this little arrow in the top left corner. That means it's a starting card. So your starting cards are Signet Ring, Diplomacy, Seek Allies, Reconnaissance, 2 copies of Dagger, 2 copies of Dune, the Desert Planet, and 2 copies of Convincing Argument. So everybody shuffles up their individual deck. You've got a little player mat here, so you choose who your leader is going to be. So in this example, I've got Paul Atreides because I've actually already done my solo playthrough video, and this is who I played as. So my deck is here, and at the start of the turn, everybody draws 5 cards. Let's take a look at what we've got. Got in my hand Convincing Argument, Diplomacy, Signet Ring, Reconnaissance, and Seek Allies. All right. And I've also got these little cubes. These are troops. They'll be used down here. And then 1 cube is also used as just a marker on these 4 tracks on the left side. I've got this 1 cylinder. There's 2 cylinders, really. One of them goes here as a victory point tracker. I'll talk about where the other one can go. Each player's got 3 of these little flags. And you start with 1 water. The other resources in the game are spice. The large ones are worth 5. And Solari, that's basically money. Again, large ones are worth 5. So here's the first player marker. So this player would go first, and you would go in clockwise order, taking turns. On your turn, you could do one of 2 things. You can place a worker, which is called sending an agent. That's what these are. So you start with 2 agents. So you can send an agent, or you can have what's called a reveal turn. Once you have a reveal turn, you can no longer send any more agents the rest of that round. So you're just going to go around in turn order. Basically, you're going to be sending your agents to different locations to take actions. And generally, when it gets back around to you and you have no more agents left, you then take your reveal turn, and then you're out for the round. So let's talk about sending agents. In order to send an agent, you have to take one of these cards from your hand and play it. And there are these icons on the left-hand side, and those icons are telling you where you are able to send your agent, where you can send your worker. So you can see these 2 cards have these 4 icons. Those are the faction icons. So that means you can send your workers to these faction spaces along the left-hand side. So each of these little corner cut rectangles, or kind of funny hexagons, I guess. Each of these is a worker space. This is where you're sending your workers. So let's take a look at the anatomy of what this looks like. If there is an icon directly under the like location type icons. So there's these faction icons and there's these yellow triangles. These are desert spaces. Blue circles are cities. These green pentagon icons are like the Galactic Council. So you'll see this card, for example, Signet Ring. You can go to the Galactic Council, a city, or the desert, but you can't go to the factions. Whereas diplomacy is the opposite. You can go to the factions, but not the desert, the cities, or the council. And different cards will have different combinations of these symbols, but these are starting cards. This one, for example, you can only go to a city when you play Reconnaissance. So when you play a card, send a worker to one of these spaces, directly beneath the symbol that designates what type of space it is, if there's any icons there, that is a cost you have to pay to go there. So to go to this desert space, there's no cost. To go to this desert space, it costs 1 water. To go to this desert space, it costs 2 water. This space costs a water. This space costs 2 spice. This space costs 6 spice. We've got Solari up here, 2 Solari, 4 Solari, 8 Solari. And then, of course, some spaces have no cost. This city has no cost, no cost. There's no cost here. So let's pretend we play Reconnaissance for a moment. We can go to a city. I'm going to take my agent and go to this space here, Carthage. There is no cost. So after you place, or when you send an agent there, you place them on the space. And of course, in most worker placement games, when you send your agent to a space, the space must be completely unoccupied. So I'm now blocking everyone else from going to that space, including myself on future turns. There can only be 1 agent per space. So when you go to a space, you then gain everything that's listed on the right side. So I'll let you look up in the rule book what the different icons mean. I'm not going to go through them now, but just as an example, if you go here, you gain a water. If you go here, you get this card. If you go here, you gain 2 Solari. There's different combinations of things. You can see a cube and a water. This green icon means draw a card. So if you were to go here, you can draw 3 cards. If you go here, you gain a cube. I'll talk about cubes later, and 1 intrigue card, which is over here. I'll talk about intrigue cards in a bit as well. And then you also check the card that you just played. This gray box here is the agent box, and you look for any text or abilities that are there, and you also have the option to trigger that. Some of them are optional, some of them are not, but whatever the ability here, like this one has nothing, but if there's an ability listed, you can do that, and you can do whatever your benefits are of the space you've gone to. You can do that stuff in any order. So, for example, this one, you get this Signet Ring ability. I'll talk about that in a moment. Some of these others, I don't think there's any others in the starting deck that have much. No, these are blank. So you don't start with very powerful cards, which is kind of typical. I'll give you some examples of something else later. And then after you've gone there, you've triggered your abilities, you've gotten your benefits, you then set this card off to the side. It is now considered in play. So then you keep going around. I might play another card. Let's say I play this one, Seek Allies. So this one can go to any of these spaces here. Let's say I go to this space, Still Suits. On this space, there is no cost. I would gain 1 water. And anytime you visit any of these spaces, you move your influence up 1 space on this track, on the associated track with whatever faction you're visiting. I'll talk about some of the benefits of that in a moment. But then the ability on this card, it says trash this card. So whenever you're told to trash a card, then the card is removed from the game. So that is useful for paring down, getting rid of some of these starting cards, because you're going to have the ability to gain new, more powerful cards, and you want to cycle them through your deck more often. You kind of want to get rid of these starting ones. So this one, you trash it as soon as you play it. It is not in play like this one. This one's just gone, and then play would continue again. Now we get back to me, and I have no more agents that I can send. So now I would take what's called a reveal turn. And I'm going to take all the rest of the cards in my hand, and I'm going to play them. And generally, they'll have some sort of ability down here in this bottom blue box. This is the reveal box. So this has a number 1 and a number 2 and a number 1. That icon is persuasion. So on my turn, on my reveal turn, I could spend that persuasion to gain new cards into my deck. Now, where do those cards come from? Well, there's 3 sets of cards here that are just always available. Arrakis Liaison, The Spice Must Flow, and not Fold Space, that's a little bit different, but you can see there's a number in the top right corner. This is a 2, this is a 9. That is the cost of that card. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I could buy Arrakis Liaison, and I have 2 more. I can even buy a second Arrakis Liaison if I want. And the cards that I purchase go into my discard pile. They go to the top of my discard pile, so I'll see them later. Now, in addition to that, there's this deck of cards here that I mentioned. This is Imperium Row. And these cards are shuffled up, and there are always 5 of them available. And they have costs. You can see here's 1, here's 7. I think the costs in this deck range from 1 to 8. And so maybe instead, I want to take my 1, 2, 3, 4 persuasion, and I want to buy this card for 1. I have 3 persuasion left. I immediately refill the offer, and I have 3 more to spend, and I could even spend it on the one that was just drawn. And I don't have to spend it all, but any persuasion I don't spend is just lost. So let's say I decided to just get this card. I don't want to buy anything else, so I'm going to lose the other 3 persuasion. Now my reveal turn is done, so I take all my cards that I just revealed, plus any that I played to send an agent somewhere that were not trashed, because the trash cards are gone. Take these cards, put them in my discard pile as well. So I start building a discard pile that later I will shuffle to form a new deck. Now this fold space card up there that I glossed over real quick, you gain that if you send an agent to this fold space space. If you go there, again, you advance on that track and you gain that specific card. And that would just go to your discard pile. This card is cool because it has all of the icons on it, so it lets you send someone anywhere. And the effect, the agent effect, is you draw a card when you play this and then trash this card. So that's how that card works. Now, let me come back to influence for a moment. So I said when you send an agent to one of these spaces, you advance your influence on that track. This icon here is the victory point icon. You can see it here at the top of the victory point track. So when you reach the second space of any of these tracks, you gain 1 victory point immediately. Now, it's possible for your influence to go down through certain game effects. So if you go back down below that space, you lose the victory point. So as I said, these can go up or down. Now, if you advance to the 4th space and you're the first one there, you gain this alliance token, which is worth 1 victory point as well, and you usually get a bonus of some sort when you reach that space. Now, if you go below that space, you have to return the alliance token, lose the victory point again, but if you re-enter the space, you do get the bonus again, and if this is still available, you take it. Now, if somebody were to pass you, they take the token from you, they gain a victory point, you lose a victory point. And so you can kind of go back and forth, and if it looks like this and they drop to your level, you have not passed them, so they get to keep it. They could go back up or you could pass them. So if you get this token and somebody's right behind you, you're kind of incentivized to get to the top of the track and keep it there so that they can't pass you. But that's how the influence tracks work. So you can see there's a total of 8 victory points to be had from these tracks. The number 2 spot on each track plus the token, the alliance token on each track. So that's 8 victory points available throughout the game. But there's also another important source of victory points, and that is combat. So you can see we're working our way through these round steps. So the round starts. There are player turns, which we talked about. You're either taking an agent turn or you are taking a reveal turn. One more thing about agents I want to mention is this space here. This is Swordmaster. If you go there, it costs 8 Solari, but you gain a 3rd agent. That is your Swordmaster. So that is available to each player. So that can allow you to take more turns. There's also this space, the Mentat. It costs 2 Solari. You draw a card and you take this Mentat token and then you use it this round as another agent. But at the end of the round, wherever it is out on the board, or if you have chosen not to use it, it then goes back to the Mentat space. There's a lot of other stuff going on out here. A couple other things to call out. This space, Siege Tabber, you must have 2 influence with the Fremen to go to this space. That's a requirement, but not a cost. So if you're at 0 or 1, you cannot go to this space. You can't go there until you're at least level 2 with the Fremen. We've got this space here, the House of Oratory. The thing I want to point out there is if you go to that space, then when you take your reveal turn, you have 1 extra persuasion. And then there's one other space here, High Council. It costs 5 Solari, and you can only go there once per game. But when you do, you can take this other cylinder you've got and place it here. And now for the rest of the game, every time you take a reveal turn, you have an additional 2 persuasion. Again, I won't go through the different effects of every space on the board. But the next thing we need to talk about is after all the players have taken their reveal turn, then there's a combat phase. So there's this deck of conflict cards, and there is 1 level 1 conflict card, 5 level 2 conflict cards, and 4 level 3 conflict cards. So it's 10 cards total. 1/1, 5 2s, and 4 3s. Now, in the game box, there are only 4 3s, so you use all of them every game, but you shuffle them up. But there are a total of 10 2s, so you shuffle them up and use half of them. And there are a total of 4 1s, so you shuffle them up and use just one of them. So you never quite know what's going to be in the deck, but you put the 3s on the bottom, then the 2s, and then the 1 on top. And at the beginning of each round, you reveal this top card. And again, as I said, after the players are done with their turns, there is a round of combat, and that's what happens in this area of the board. Whoever wins the combat gets the first place prize. Whoever takes second gets the second place prize. The third place is only used in a 4-player game. If you're playing a 3-player game, nobody gets third. And then you can only gain a reward if you've participated in combat in some way. And you may notice I didn't talk about what happens in 1 or 2-player games. I'll get to that in the 1 or 2-player section of this video. But here's how combat works. Each player has a garrison, and these cubes represent their troops. Just take the garrison that's closest to you. It doesn't really matter where they go. And as you play, you may place your agent on a space like this one. Rally troops, cost 4 Solari. There are 4 cubes there. That means you take up to 4 cubes from your supply and add them to your garrison. Now, other spaces may or may not have cubes, but have these cross swords symbols here in the bottom right corner. So that's all of these city spaces and all these desert spaces, plus Highliner and the 2 Fremen spaces. So if you ever go to a space with the crossed swords, like this one gives you 1 to your garrison. The crossed swords means whatever troops you've added to your garrison, recruited to your garrison this turn, you may deploy into this combat area in the middle, plus up to 2 more that were already in your garrison. So you can decide, you could push 0. You know, in this case, I got 1 to my garrison through this. Perhaps I've played a card that allows me to recruit more. Any I've recruited this turn, I may push into combat, and I may push up to an additional 2 whenever there's a cross sword symbol. So if you go to this space, for example, you're not gaining any cubes, but you may push up to 2 cubes into the combat area. And so through your turns, you may be recruiting troops to your garrison, you may be pushing troops into combat, and at the end, when everybody has taken their reveal turn, there are some of these cards, like Dagger, that has this sword icon in the reveal section of the card. For each of those sword icons, you're going to go up 1 point on this conflict track down here. So there's a tracker for each player. So 1 point for each of these swords, and then each cube that you have in combat is worth 2 points. And so you can see that here. Cubes are worth 2. Each sword is worth 1. And so in this case, let's say that I played 1 card with the sword. I've got 2 cubes, so that's 4 points. Blue's got 3 cubes, green's got 1 cube. I played a sword. Let's say nobody else played any swords. So blue gets first place, they gain a victory point. I'd be in second place, I would gain a water, and this is a 3-player game, green would gain nothing. And then at the end of combat, any cubes that are here that were in the combat area, regardless of the results of the combat, all these cubes return to their respective supplies. Now, after the combat step, then you leave all of the agents wherever they are on the board. Let's say this one is here. We have this maker's step. For any of these 3 desert spaces that are unoccupied, you add 1 spice, 1 bonus spice right here. Now, the next round, let's say I go here, nobody goes to these 2 other spaces, I would gain 2 spice plus the bonus spice that's there. And at the end of the round, let's say it kind of looked like this, and we get to this maker step, we would add 1 here and another 1 here. So as these desert spaces don't get visited, they gain more bonus spice. So by default, this one is worth 3 spice, this one's worth 2, this one's worth 1, plus whatever bonus spice has accumulated there. So these spaces kind of get more valuable as you don't go there. Then after the maker step, then you can recall any of your played agents, you return the mentat. If the mentat is out, you can reset these combat markers. Then the next round starts by revealing the next conflict card, drawing up 5 more cards, If you don't have enough cards to draw, then you would shuffle up your discard pile, make a new deck, and continue to draw until you have 5 cards, and we keep going. Now, after this maker step, if somebody has 10 or more victory points, again, that triggers the end game. So now would be a good time to talk about intrigue cards. There's a few places on the board where you can gain intrigue cards. There's one up there. There may be other effects from some of these cards you can get that allow you to gain more intrigue cards. So here's the deck of intrigue cards. There's 3 types of cards in here. The first is called a plot card. On your turn, when you're taking an agent turn, you can play one or more of these plot cards, as many as you want, and gain their effects. So some of them will have a cost, some not. So this one just says advance on this Spacing Guild track. So you just play this card, you advance on the track, you still take your agent turn, so that's great. This one advances on a different track. This one says at the start of your turn, draw a card. You may pass your turn instead of taking an agent or reveal turn. So there's all sorts of neat effects in here, and those are plot cards. Now, and I want to be clear, you can play the plot card on any of your turns, your agent turn or your reveal turn as well. The next type of card is a combat card. So when we're sitting here in combat and we had our troops in here, I think we were at like 6, 5, and 2, something like that. We can then go around the table in turn order, and you have the option to, if you have any intrigue cards, you can decide to play one combat intrigue card. So if I played this, I would gain 1, 2, 3, 4 swords. And then the next person gets the option to play an intrigue card. The next person does it. You keep going around until everyone has passed consecutively. So I could pass, and then green could pass, then blue plays an intrigue card. It comes back to me, and based off their card, I may choose to play another one. So that's kind of how that works. So there's combat intrigue cards. You play them during combat. They're going to give you more swords, or sometimes you've got to pay for them. This one costs 2 spice to gain 5 swords. There's all sorts of effects in there. This one has some sort of choice. Gain 3 swords or retreat up to 3 of your troops back to your garrison. So if you know you're not going to win, you can get your troops back rather than lose them. That's pretty cool. The last type of card is an endgame card. So I said at the end of a round, when somebody has 10 or more victory points, that triggers the endgame. Everyone now has the opportunity to play any and all endgame intrigue cards that they're holding on to. And this can give you victory points as well. So even though somebody else triggered the endgame and got to 10, that doesn't mean they're going to necessarily be the winner. You could pass them up with an endgame card. So as you're going along and playing the game, you're trying to acquire some of these intrigue cards because they can be very powerful. And they're secret, so nobody has to know what type of card you even have. And you can just hold on to it. Maybe it's combat, maybe it's endgame, maybe you're going to use it for the plot. They don't know. So that's kind of neat. And then there is one space here. This space allows you to gain an intrigue card, and this symbol then says at that time, any other player who has 4 or more intrigue cards, you get to take one at random. So you don't want to hold on to too many of them because other players can try and steal them. Now you're going to keep going around. If no one triggers the end game by having 10 or more victory points at the end of a round, the other way the end can be triggered is if you run out of the conflict deck. So if you take the last conflict card out of this deck and you play this round, complete this combat in the maker turn. If nobody has 10 victory points yet, the end game is just triggered anyway, and you figure out who has the most victory points and then determine a winner. And if the number of victory points is tied, the tiebreaker is who has the most spice. If that's still a tie, it's who has the most solari. If that's still a tie, it's who has the most water. If that's still a tie, it's who has the most troops in their garrison. And if that's still a tie, the players share the victory. So that was as fast an overview as I could give on how to play Dune Imperium. If you have not played before, that's basically it. You'd have to learn some icons, but hopefully that was helpful to anybody who's new. Now, let me jump into the part of the video where I talk about how to play the solo mode, because it's a little bit different. So in the solo mode, you are going to set up for a 3-player game. So I'm going to be Paul, and these are my 2 opponents, Earl Memnon Thorvald, good luck pronouncing that, and the Beast Ribbon are the 2 opponents that I'm playing against. These are the 2 that are recommended if you are new to the solo mode. Now, one thing that I forgot in the previous section, let me talk about this real quick. I didn't talk about the signet ring. This is important. Each of these leaders has one ongoing special ability on the left, and then they have a signet ring ability. Each time you play your signet ring card, and trigger this on an agent turn, trigger this signet ring ability, then you also trigger whatever ability it is here. So on this card, I have draw one card. So anytime I play this on my agent turn, I can draw a card. Everybody's got a different signet ring ability. That's kind of important to know. All right, back to solo mode. You're going to set up for a 3-player game as normal. As I said, Thorvald and the Beast are recommended for for your first time through. The only other restrictions are Paul and Helena. These cannot be AI opponents. These two they just won't work with the AI. Any other leaders will work with the AI, not these two. You can play them, but the AI opponent cannot. Now, the AI opponents, called the rivals, will not need these cylinders because they will not go to that high council space. That's not available to them. And in fact, they don't use any cards. They don't need a deck of Imperium cards, and they don't take reveal turns. But everyone starts with 1 water as usual. There are 3 difficulty modes. I'm going to call them easy, medium, and hard, but the manual calls them mercenary, Sardaukar, and mentat, and also calls them novice, veteran, and expert, respectively. So 3 names there. I'm going to go with easy, medium, and hard just for clarity. Let me remove this because it's the start of this game. And go ahead and place your 3rd agent on the Swordmaster spot. We're going to set the other 2 3rd agents for the rivals aside for the moment. And let me walk through the differences of the 3 difficulty modes. So if you're playing on easy, when you start, you also start with an extra 1 Solari and 1 Spice. Your rivals start with 0 troops in the garrison. It's all in their supply. The rivals don't get any extra starting resources. And you're going to take 5 cards off the top of this conflict deck and place both rivals' 3rd agents on top of that card, and then place these 5 cards on top. So as you're going through the setup phase each round, you reveal the conflict card and you keep going. When you get to the round where you reveal these 2 agents, they immediately go to the rivals' supply, so they're able to take more turns. Now, if you're playing on medium mode, then you do not start with an extra Spice and Solari. Your rivals start with 3 troops in the garrison, just like you. You only put 4 cards on top of the additional agents, so they're going to get their 3rd agent 1 round sooner. The rivals each start with 1 intrigue card. Don't look at it because you don't want to know what they have, but they've got 1 card in hand. And you're going to take one of these 5 Solari tokens and place it here in the mentat space. That space now, instead of costing 2 Solari to go there, it now costs 5. And if you want to play in expert mode, that whole setup is the same as medium difficulty, but again, move these 3rd agents up 1 round, so there's only 3 cards on top of them in the conflict deck there. Now, your rivals will be gaining resources and intrigue cards, and when they're not really going to spend them on anything, but when they reach certain thresholds, they will immediately turn them in for a victory point. So when they reach 3 intrigue cards, they will immediately turn them in and gain 1 victory point. So you just set them aside, you discard them without looking at them. Now, it's important because this space here, when you go here, if any of your opponents have 4 or more intrigue cards, you get to take 1. So they will never have 4 intrigue cards, so you can never get that bonus on that action. This space will only ever give you an intrigue card because they'll never have really more than 2. As soon as they get a 3rd, they'll discard and get a victory point. For water, anytime a rival has 3 water, they will immediately discard 3 water for a victory point. And then for Solari and for Spice, in both cases, it is 7. So if they have 7 Solari or 7 Spice, they will discard them immediately for a victory point. You will give the 1st player token to the rival to your left. So they're going to start the 1st round. The 2nd round will be the other rival. You will be the 1st player on the 3rd round. And you're going to take all your turns like normal. The rivals will take their turns a little bit differently. On their leader cards, they do use their signet ring ability, but you completely ignore this passive ability on the left-hand side. Just pretend it's not there, but they do get their signet ring ability. Now, for the rivals to take their turns, there's this new deck of cards, House Hagal. I really like this system, and maybe I'll save my commentary for the end of the video, but let's look at this deck. So before you start, you want to find there's 4 cards with a 2P in the top right corner. You're going to remove those. there's 3 cards with a 1p. You're going to keep those. Basically, the way this game works is it's a 1 to 4 player game, but there are always a minimum of 3 leaders in play. So if you play solo, you're playing against 2 rivals. If you're playing a 2-player game, 2 people, you're going to have 1 rival in the game. And so you use these 2p cards for a 2-player game, the 1p cards for a 1-player game. Now the difference is the 2-player game has this reshuffle card. Whenever this is drawn, you just reshuffle this House Hagal deck. Solo mode doesn't have that. And there are 3 cards that are identical here for Arakeen on the 2-player. And there are 3 cards for Arakeen on the solo, and the only difference is the solo one has the Signet Ring ability, so whenever that card is drawn, the rival gets to use their Signet Ring ability. In the 2-player game, you use these. The rivals don't use their Signet Ring either, so just make sure you have what's appropriate for you. So anyway, this is the solo teach, so 2-player cards we're going to remove, the 1-player cards we're going to keep, and then you shuffle up this deck. Now let's look at what's in here. On a rival's turn, you draw the top card from the deck. Let's look at that Arakeen card. And so as long as that space is unoccupied, you're going to send the rival there. If that space is occupied, you just draw the next card, and you continue to draw until you get an unoccupied space. So that's very simple. They do not pay any costs to go anywhere, and you also ignore all the bonuses that the space normally gives you. Instead, they're going to gain whatever the card says here. So in this case, they would go to Arakeen, they would add 1 troop to their garrison, and they would get their Signet Ring ability. So if this was Earl Thorvald, they would gain 1 spice. Now, by default, anytime they go to a combat area, they're going to deploy as many troops as possible. So in this case, Thorvald would gain 1 troop to the garrison and deploy it, and then deploy up to 2 more. They're always going to put as many troops in as they possibly can. Let's look at what spaces are here. So we've got Arakeen 1, 2, 3 times. We've got Carthag 1, 2, 3 times, and that they're going to go there. It's a combat space, just gain a cube. So it's the same as Arakeen minus the Signet Ring. Then we've got our faction spaces down the left here. So we've got 2 copies of Conspire. They're both the same. They just move up 1 space on the Emperor track and gain 2 troops to their garrison. 1 for Wealth, 1 for Highliner, 2 for Fold Space, 2 for Selective Breeding, 1 for Secrets, 1 for Hardy Warriors, 2 for Still Suits. So 3 cards per influence track are in the deck. And then we had, what did we say, 3 Arakeen, 3 Carthag. So there's 6 total between those 2 cities. Then we have some of the Landsrad Council spaces. So Hall of Oratory on the top right there. There's 2 of those. Rally Troops right there. There's 2 of those. And that's it for the Landsrad. I'll talk about the last cards in this deck in a moment. So we never have to worry about the rivals going to the High Council. They're not going to go there. That's why we removed their little markers. They're not going to use those. They're never going to go to the Mentat space. They're never going to go to the Swordmaster space because they get their 3rd agent this way. They never go to these 2 spaces up here, and they never go to Research Station, Siege Tabber, ever. So that's good to know before you go in. And then as for the 3 desert spaces, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards that say Harvest Spice. They're all identical. The Harvest Spice, I mean, it's just got text right on it that tells you what to do. It says send an agent to the space with the most bonus spice. So again, these piles here are the bonus spice. So whichever one of those has the most, or if let's say they all have 1 bonus spice, then go to whichever space has the most total spice if tied. If no spaces have bonus spice, reveal another card. So on the first round of the game, for example, there's no bonus spice out here. So you would just keep flipping until you get something different in that case. And of course, these are all combat spaces. So anytime they go there, they're going to push troops into combat. So their turns are super easy to run. So if it's Thorvald, we flip this card. I know I just said there's no bonus spice. Let me throw a couple other cards on top here. So for Thorvald, we had flipped this. They go to Selective Breeding. Ignore what it says here. They don't pay any cost. It just says go up 1 space on that track. They gain victory points the same as we would. And then it's the next player's turn. Flip a card. That place is occupied, so we're going to go instead to Fold Space. They go here. It says go up one space. They go up one space. That's it. Like super simple to run. Now, when it comes to combat, when you get to the combat step, because they have no reveal turns, remember, and they don't have a deck of Imperium cards. So that's how they do their stuff. When it gets to the combat phase and where everybody's taken, I guess you've taken your reveal turn and they have no more agents, and now we're calculating combat, you can play intrigue cards if you want to. They don't play any intrigue cards. They're just collecting them for victory points, but you can play intrigue cards. And then when you're done doing that, starting with the first rival, with whoever's first in turn order, you reveal the next card and you look at how many swords are here at the bottom. And so they can gain additional swords that way. Then you go to the next rival who is in combat. If a rival is not in combat, they don't draw a card. But the next one in combat draws a card. Highliner's got 6 of them here. So that's a very powerful card. So there's, stronger ones in the deck. There's weaker ones. Some of them actually have 0 swords. So it'll be a mix. Obviously you're going to shuffle this up. So that's sort of how you run the rivals, and they gain the rewards as normal and in whatever ability they can. So they would gain a victory point, they would gain a water and a spice. They don't have any cards to trash, so you can ignore that. I didn't really talk about it in the full overview, but if they happen to win one of these combats that's at a specific place, such as, let me see if I can find one of them. This one here, for example, if one of them were to win Secure Imperial Basin, they would place their flag at Imperial Basin just like a human player would, and just like a human player, every time somebody goes to that space, including themselves, they gain the listed bonus. So Spice here, Solari for those 2 spaces. Otherwise, the rest of combat works the way you would expect. The Maker turn works exactly the same as in the base game. The rules for victory are the same. Triggering the end game is the same. If there's ever a choice for the rivals about gaining influence specifically, then they will always choose the track with the least influence, the one that they have the least influence. If there is a tie, you get to choose. You just decide whichever track you want. And then in any other case of having a choice, like just for example here, this says gain an intrigue card or gain 1 spice, you just always choose for them. So you should feel free to choose the option that is less favorable for your rival. There are some of these conflict cards. Let's see if I can find one real quick. Not there. There we go. That allow the winner to gain the Mentat. And that works, again, just like it would with a human player. Let's say this rival won a combat and took first place. They would take the Mentat and keep it until the next round. And the next round, they would be able to take 1 additional agent turn. And then one other important note about these faction tracks. So as they gain influence with each of these factions, everything works as you would normally expect as far as victory points and the alliance tokens. But I should mention the rivals do not gain this bonus for entering tier 4, either 1 water, 1 intrigue card, 3 Solari, or 2 troops to the garrison. They still take the alliance token, they just don't gain the other reward. And then once the endgame is triggered in any of the normal ways, you can play any endgame intrigue cards that you have. If the rivals have any intrigue cards, they do not play them. They're just holding those for, to be able to turn them in for victory points. So they never play any intrigue cards. You don't have to worry about that. And I think that pretty much covers it. The only other thing I want to point out is just to keep in mind when you are playing solo, this Imperium Row doesn't have a refresh mechanism. So whatever cards are out there, they're not going to buy any cards. So the cards are going to be what they are until you buy one, and that's the only way to refresh it. So if you don't like all 5 cards, you're kind of stuck. There's no mechanism to replace them. But that being said, my opinion is I really, really like this solo mode. It is, you're playing against 2 AI opponents, but man, it is simple to run. I really like this deck of cards. It's really elegant. It's really quick and easy. When I play solo mode of Dune Imperium, I am spending most of the time taking my turn, very little of the time running the rival opponent. So I really, really like that. And as I said, I released a solo playthrough at the same time as this video using these 3 leaders. You can go watch that if you like. I play on medium mode, and I am no expert in this game, strategically. Like, I know the rules, I like to play, it's fun, but I have not, figured out probably all the nuances available to me in this game. And so I'm a very medium player is my point. I play on medium difficulty, and I won't tell you how it ends, but it is very, very even the whole way, the whole way along. I think I get some early victory points, and then they catch up and kind of pass me. And then at the end, it is very, very close as we're moving up these tracks, going towards 10 victory points. I felt that for as easy as this was to run, it also just had the right pacing where I felt like it was playing at the same pace that I was. I didn't get steamrolled, but I also felt like there was a challenge. So I'm really, really pleased with this deck of cards and running the solo mode for Dune Imperium. So that's what I've got. Hopefully this video has been helpful. I tried to cram a lot of information into as little time as I could. So I hope I've given you the tools that you need to play Dune Imperium solo. And if you do have any questions or if you think I missed anything, please let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to talk to you down there. I always enjoy hearing your thoughts, your opinions, answering your questions. It's all great. So please do engage with me there. And then of course you can also watch the solo playthrough. I think that'll give you a lot of good examples of some of the things that I went over pretty briefly here. You can just kind of see how everything works. It's really nice. And if you like this video, please do leave a like and consider subscribing. Maybe share the video with somebody else you think might find it helpful. And don't forget, when I am done with this Dune Imperium series, I'm going to give away this copy of Dune Imperium along with Rise of Ix and Immortality. So if that's something you're interested in, please subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned so that you can get that information once I'm done filming this whole series, because that'll be pretty cool to give that away. But I think that about covers it for today. So that's what I got in this video. Hopefully it was helpful. Watch the solo playthrough. That should answer some questions too. And then if you have Dune Imperium and you've not played the solo mode yet, I do recommend it. Go give it a try. Thank you for watching Table from One. I'll see you in the next video.